Yeah, I'm gonna see you later. I just got a thing I gotta do really quick. But hey, are you gonna wear those shorts? You know the ones I really like. Oh, in the world of wrestling, a great gimmick can make your character, and it can ensure a successful and prosperous career. This also applies to bosses in video games, and FromSoftware has created some of the best gimmick bosses I've ever seen. But you know what? Some of their gimmick bosses are so insulting that they might as well have put a piece of dog shit on the end of a fishing pole and dangled it around in your face with some epic music popping the fuck off in the background while they scream, "Ha ha ha! Aren't you impressed? I hope you can figure this one out." So whether we're talking about a fine concept that just could not stick the landing, or we're talking about a boss fight that was just crap from the get-go, they all have one thing in common. They suck! And this, dear viewer, is why I am driven, no, compelled, to bring to you the 10 worst gimmick bosses in FromSoftware. That said, let's start with number 10. Now here's a boss that can be tedious even if you know how to tackle the gimmick. You have two choices ahead of you when the ancient wyvern appears at Archdragon Peak. For one, you can try to fight him normally, and boy oh boy, is it gonna take forever. He has an enormous health bar, and he has a lot of resistance to basically every status you can inflict on him. So if you've decided that you've had enough of this tomfoolery with the ancient wyvern, you can decide to take part in a very exciting gimmick indeed. You know how with the Elden Beast we all joke about him and how, you know, basically fighting the Elden Beast, it's like doing a run back because he's always running away from you and you're having to chase him down, and how he's a mother and how his mother's and how his dad loves to shove squirrels up his ass, and one time he actually up a radiator. Well, have I got a deal for you. That's right, friends. To kill the ancient wyvern, the gimmick is that you have to do an honest to Gwyn run back. You get to climb ladders, you get to cross scaffolding, and you get to fight dangerous creatures, all so that you may get to the top of this area and do a plunging attack on the wyvern's head, killing it in one hit. Wow. How epic. How exciting. The ancient wyvern is quite the disappointing boss fight. Instead of this epic battle against a winged beast of destruction, we get this stupid gimmick. And I'm not saying the ancient wyvern is the worst boss in FromSoftware history, but if I'm gonna climb a construction site with the ultimate goal of getting to the top to take down a vicious, dangerous brute, I'm just saying there are better options out there. Number 9. Do you want to kill monsters with your own spit? You're gonna need a transposing kiln for that. And in order to get that transposing kiln, we're gonna have to fight one of the few bosses in Dark Souls 3 that really makes me say, a big stump with an absolutely legendary case of spooky genital warts. So, what kind of introduction do you think they chose for the curse-rotted Greatwood? Sometimes when you start a boss fight, there's a cool cutscene and it displays the immense power and great size of the enemy, sometimes even making you regret walking through that bog gate. Sometimes there is no cutscene and the boss just drops right down into frame, scaring the shit out of you. You know the first time that Taurus demon popped down onto that bridge, you pooped your pants. So let's see which choice the development team on Dark Souls 3 decided to go with for the curse-rotted Greatwood. Oh, I see. They went with neither. Just look at that piece of shit just sitting there in the corner going, well, I'm a tree. When you walk into the room, he doesn't even do anything. He just sits there and you gotta walk 500 miles just to get him to even react. And the first thing he does is he just goes ahead and drops a bunch of dudes on the ground to fight you. So he's also one of those wussy-ass bosses that actually needs a bunch of helpers to take you down. He just spins around, pitches a fit, tries to stand up, but I guess he's too fat to do it, and then he falls down and goes boom, and then he pees his pants and makes a puddle all over the floor. The mechanic to this fight is that you have to hit those white bubbles or eggs or whatever they are on the tree, and that is how you are able to damage it. It is easier said than done because a lot of the time the tree will just kind of roll over and make it to where the weak point is virtually impossible for you to even hit. And if you hit the tree anywhere that is not one of these eggs, it does nothing. Once you finally damage the boss enough, the floor will fall out from under you and the tree will grow a big old spooky ghost arm out of its crotch. And this is kind of cool because it's an extra weak point that you can hit. Hooray! Woo, 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 woo. However, you have to be very careful because that liquid that comes out of the tree all over the ground, that pee, it's cursed pee. This fight is lame as hell and it really sucks ass waiting to get to those weak points to hit them. Next entry, number 8. This gimmick is the result of someone on the development team posing the question, what if we made a gank boss, but instead of them attacking you, they went invisible and then went back into the corner to go scratch their moldy old. If you come into this boss fight with insight, the witches of Hemwick will summon that creepy monster from Smiling Friends to come attack you, and in multiple copies. However, if you come into this boss fight with a few levels and an upgraded weapon, this is probably the most trivial boss fight in the entire game. Also, this gimmick was so shitty that they had to reuse it in Elden Ring. Way to go, you Number 7. When it comes to bosses who love to run away from you and constantly blast you with range attacks, FromSoftware really has a boner for that shit. And I think the first one that I ever encountered that made me just ask, what the hell are you guys thinking? Was Dark Sun Gwindel. Literally, the only thing this guy does is shoot lasers at you and then run away. I mean, even the Moonlight Butterfly will eventually sit his ass down on that bridge. Even the Elden Beast will eventually stop running away from you. When I'm comparing the Elden Beast to you as a positive, your boss fight is ass. Dark Sun Gwindel has a cool visual style and the arena is pretty neat and inventive. But the fight, ass. Number 6. I have a question. Did you really think that a boss who hides in a cup is gonna fight normally? Exactly. Here we have another miserable with weak points that we must attack. When the fight begins, you'll notice that this bitch is bedazzled with the most amazing bracelets that Madonna would have never been caught dead wearing. These are the places that we must attack in order to take down High Lord Wolnir. Yes, you heard me correctly. In order to kill him, we must destroy his jewelry. Can you think of any other boss in history that if you break their jewelry, they just lay down and die? Try doing that shit to a piece of Lady Maria's jewelry. She'll probably take her sword and shove it up your ass sideways. One of the more annoying things about the fight against Wolnir is the fact that he is constantly moving his arms around, making it very hard for you to get to his bracelets. In fact, sometimes his right arm will be back so far that it's almost out of the arena, and if you try to go after it, you very much could die. All of this, as you may have guessed, makes it very hard to take out those bracelets, especially with a melee build. And if RNG is not on your side, Wolnir will summon little skeleton buddies to help piss you off while you're trying to fight him. Also, High Lord Wolnir has the ability to pull out a giant sword, which would give him enough range to reach pretty much anywhere within the arena. And as for the final nail in the coffin, High Lord Wolnir turns into that obnoxious prick in the department store who blows his vape smoke all over the place, and it can kill you rather quickly. But let's not lose sight of the forest for the trees. The main reason we are here talking about this Gimmick boss is because of the fact that his stupid weak points can be very hard to hit because of him constantly moving his arms out of your way. What a neat looking boss. And what a stupid, lame ass fight. Number 5. For you poor unfortunate souls who have yet to experience the greatness of Demon Souls, your adventure begins with a brief but adequate tutorial which culminates in one of 2 scenarios. If you're a scrub like me, you most likely are going to get one-shotted by the Vanguard Demon, who is considerably less sexy than the Asylum Demon. However, the hardest of tryhards who are actually able to topple the tutorial boss get some upgrade materials, and they get to walk into an exclusive area, woo, and actually get to see the Dragon God. Remember this guy from the opening cutscene though? Remember how he looked like the most badass creature to ever exist, and he's probably going to be the final boss of the game, which will definitely end in the most epic, amazing battle ever. Right? After taking down the Flame Lurker at the end of World 2-2, we get to cross the threshold into level 2-3, and we are greeted by a stealth level. And if that doesn't get your nipples hard enough to cut glass, I bet this little nugget of information will. If the Dragon God sees you and manages to actually hit you, it's a one-shot kill. Once you have fired both of the ballistae at the Dragon God, it is a very simple matter of just going down some stairs and whacking old DG right in his goatee. I find it a little interesting and unexpected that this giant demonic dragon monster gets knocked basically helpless from 2 tiny ballista shots. It kind of reminds me of some of the Elder Dragon fights in the Monster Hunter series where you fire ballista and cannons and all kinds of shit and it does not take them down. What I am trying to say is, as cool looking as the Dragon God is, especially in that opening cutscene of Demon Souls, basically every Monster Hunter Elder Dragon makes him look like a little bitch. With that all being said, I think that the middle of the list is a good spot for the Dragon God, because if you know what to do, he's an absolute joke. But if you don't know what to do, this can be one of the most freaking maddening, ooh god, it can just be one of the most frustrating parts in the entire game. Dragon God. What a disappointing piece of shit. Number 4. So, I actually just found out that bacon jam is a thing. That's right. You can actually get spreadable bacon jelly and you can spread it on your toast. Pretty weird, huh? But if you want to try really going outside the box and smear shit all over your toast, you can just take a little trip on down to New Londo Ruins and fight the Four Kings. This boss is masterfully created as one of the most annoying and tedious and least looked forward to moments in the original Dark Souls. It says Four Kings, and you just know things are about to get stupid when you walk in the room and there's only one guy there. Now, before I get started with this boss fight and why it is such garbage, it actually just occurred to me there are actually two gimmicks at play when you fight the Four Kings. So, technically, one of the gimmicks is actually just related to the area, but because I can't think of a better time to talk about it, I'm going to go ahead and speak on this right now. In the original Dark Souls, for some reason, we're only able to wear 2 rings, and you have to use 1 ring just to be able to exist in the abyss without just falling into the dark nothingness. Lame! Okay, now that I've gotten that out of my system, let's talk about this boss. I would like to start to talk about the Four Kings by mentioning the positives, and that is the excellent presentation and design of the boss. I think this guy is really creepy looking, and I love the fact that they're like so tall that they just kind of stand up out of the abyss so you can't even see where their feet are. I just think it's a little creepy. Okay, basically everything else about this boss, I hate. So first of all, this boss has one of the biggest health bars in the game. And unlike the Bell Gargoyles, which triggers the appearance of a second opponent once the health bar of the first gets to about 50%, that's not how things work down here in the Abyss. In the Abyss, if you don't manage to take out the first king within the first 45 seconds of the boss fight, another one appears. And 45 seconds later, another one appears. And then another. In fact, they can keep appearing if you don't take any of them out. Up until the point where you have to deal with 5 at the same time, but I can guarantee you, you're probably going to be dead before 5 kings show up. 5? 5 kings? So wait a minute, what the f? So you get down there and there's 1 king, so that's stupid. But then if you keep alive long enough, there'll be 5? So it's basically anything but 4 kings is what you're going to be dealing with. Alright, when it comes to combat, the 4 kings have a melee attack which has some pretty stupid range, which it can be pretty aggravating. But the real bullshit sandwich that they make you eat down here in the Abyss is the projectile attack. Because when the 4 kings fire their big, crazy Ultraman laser thing at you, it's really hard to tell like where it's at in relation to you. Also, these projectiles seem to be basically heat-seeking because they're freaking hard to dodge. The Four Kings is one of the most annoying bosses in the game, and a lot of the times I just get frustrated with it and I put on Havel's armor and get the biggest weapon I can and just whack them and just keep chugging Astus and healing through the damage. And you know, it's like it's not fun. I just want to get through it. Oh yeah, and they also cry like a bitch when you kill them. Punk asses. Number 3. After the final pulse-pounding moments of Armored Core 6's Chapter 3, you would think that the beginning of Chapter 4 would be a little less intense and hectic. Go ahead. Take it away, crestfallen warrior. The first mission of Chapter 4 is a super swell time. Because not only are we going to do some platforming, we're going to do some puzzle platforming. Yeah. Yeah. So what is the puzzle, you ask? Well, that's very simple, and I'm going to explain it to you now. We must make it all the way to the bottom of this huge, massive chasm without receiving a laser enema from the AB08 Nepenthes. I see you smirking, okay? And this ain't no joke.
You stick so much as one ball hair over the side of that platform, and there are 6 laser cannons targeting your ass. Oh, and because that's not enough, there's also an array of missile launchers. FromSoftware, you know what I like. I would compare it to going down the Great Hollow, but having Shin Godzilla at the bottom blasting you the entire way down. I died quite a few times trying to complete this mission, and just to be sure that they didn't make the game too easy for us, FromSoftware also added some smaller units with some very strong weaponry with some very good range, just to make sure that we were completely on edge all the way down. Luckily, once you make it to the bottom of the chamber, the AB-08 Nepenthes is pretty easy to destroy without much pushback. The boss can still fire missiles at you, but just leisurely circling the boss makes it almost impossible for you to get hit. It's kind of funny now that I think about it, going through an entire level of hell just to get to a helpless boss at the end. It reminds me of a boss from an earlier game. And if you're not sure which one I'm talking about yet, you just stay tuned. Number 2. And what an exciting gimmick we have for the number 2 spot. Dicko Lash, host of the Nightmare, is a FromSoftware boss like no other. While FromSoft has bosses that tend to run away from you, Miko Lash will run away from you and run away from you and continue to run away from you until you finally figure out his gimmick and manage to corner him. It should be said that there are going to be spooky puppets all through the level while you're chasing him up and down the stairs, and he is going to be talking crazy shit at you the whole way through. Once you do manage to corner Miko Lash, you want to make sure that you take out all the puppets that are in the room with him, and yes, this does make him another boss in FromSoftware who needs a support team because he is a bitch. The good news is that once you take out his little puppet helpers, Miko Lash really is not that bad. All he tends to do is spam the Augur of Abritus, and he goes down without too much trouble. But what's this? You take him down to half health, and he just falls over and disappears and starts laughing. Well, now we have entered Phase 2 of the Miko Lash fight, and if you thought Phase 1 was annoying, it's about to get so much worse. In the second phase of the boss fight, Miko Lash goes a long ways away, and you have to go through a much larger area. There are also tougher enemies to fight. And to add insult to injury, Miko Lash will actually stop at the base of an area that is overlooked by a balcony just to tease the shit out of you, so that when you jump down to try to take him on, he just continues to run away, because of course he does. Like the Dragon God boss fight, Miko Lash is another boss where if you don't know what to do, this boss fight can feel just impossible. However, the difference between Miko Lash and Dragon God is that when you know how to beat the Dragon God, he's very easy and really isn't that much trouble. Miko Lash, like I said, is a penis face, and he has a new spell he's going to use in the second phase called a Call Beyond. And a Call Beyond 100% has the ability to one-shot your ass. So just imagine, you went through all this bullcrap and you finally figured out how to corner him, you took his health down, then you got to him and cornered him a second time, only to be one-shot the second you walked into the room. It's no waterfowl dance, but I will say that as far as Bloodborne goes, it's the most bullshit move. I really can't blame you for cheesing this guy. He's so annoying and frustrating, and he's just not fun. The idea of getting one shot after going through all that work, it's infuriating. I think the idea of going inside somebody's nightmare is freaking awesome. Miko Lash is one of the last bosses you fight in Bloodborne in the main story mode. And personally, I think it was kind of a letdown, because when I think of being in somebody's nightmare, of course, I'm immediately going to start thinking about Freddy Krueger and all the crazy, messed up scenarios being in a dream can facilitate. And unfortunately, instead of experiencing the weird craziness of the Freddy sequels, we just got the boiler room. This could have been the best boss fight in the game. Hell, it may have been able to be the best boss fight in all of FromSoft if they got creative enough with this whole nightmare concept. But instead, it boils down to chasing the literal personification of a used panty liner up a staircase. And the number one worst gimmick boss fight in FromSoftware history is not a surprise to a single soul. By far, the absolute worst boss that FromSoftware has ever created is 100% due to the hideous, disgusting gimmick that permeates this entire battle, just like the smell of cat piss permeates the air of a small room. The gimmick to the Bed of Chaos is that you must make it to both sides of the arena, break some sticks, and then destroy the weak point that is hidden behind said sticks. The fight is complete when you make it to the center of the arena and destroy the boss, which is hidden behind a protective barrier that has now disappeared after taking out the two weak points. So those of you Dark Souls virgins out there are probably going to ask me, well, if all you have to do is make it to two sides of the room, then what is the obstacle that is stopping you from doing this? And it's very simple. In fact, I only really have one word for it. It's shit. Mountains upon mountains upon mountains of shit, actually. Shit so high that birds can't even make it up there. If Frodo had to throw the ring into Mount Doom and it was up as high as this shit was, Gandalf and the Eagles could never make it up there to save him. They all would have passed out from being so high up in the stratosphere. We're going to have to run, jump, and roll to evade giant tree limbs that basically are going to keep swiping at you until you're dead. Okay, so at first, the Bed of Chaos boss is not actually that aggressive, and you should be able to make it to the first weak point and destroy it without too much trouble. However, after destroying the first weak point, we get a little cutscene, and this is the point where the tree... I'm sorry, I just gotta take a minute and ask, what is the deal with shitty tree bosses in FromSoftware games? I mean, you know, in real life, I'm actually a huge fan of trees, but man, when it comes to FromSoftware games, I gotta say it, trees. In fact, I'd like to take this moment to announce that I am gonna be starting a Kickstarter to start opening up paper mills inside of Lordran, inside of Drangleic, inside of the lands between, anywhere where there's trees, we're gonna grind them bitches up and turn them into toilet paper so that they can wipe our asses. So after taking out one weak point, this tree grows these like extra fire branches out of the top of it, and then it grows one really long like a fire scythe tree branch. Do you see how stupid this sounds just describing it? So now we have the two big branches swiping at us. We have a giant fire scythe branch swiping at us. And because that's not enough, now the ground is going to start falling out under our feet. So the branches are going to swipe at us, and now instead of doing damage, they can just knock us into a bottomless pit for an instant kill. It's radical, dude. If you thought your sluggish-ass Dark Souls character was bad at running and jumping, wait till you see what happens when you're trying to make it across a giant room full of pits when there's arms just coming out of nowhere, just sweeping your ass into oblivion over and over. And I seriously lost track of how many times I died. So the question remains, how is one actually supposed to succeed in the battle against the Bed of Chaos? There are two factors that are going to be at play here. One is the fact that the developers knew that this was like prime hot garbage material. So for the first time, and I believe the only time in FromSoftware history, they created a checkpoint system in the boss fight. The other prime factor that is going to ensure your victory, possibly, is going to be our good old buddy RNG. I'm just going to say this now. RNG is not always going to be your friend. So there's a good chance that you're going to have to do this run back so many times, and it is really long and it is really boring. So just put on some soothing music, maybe some I don't know, some Aaron Neville or something like that. Maybe get a little cup of tea, maybe some English breakfast would be good, and just try to relax, because this is going to be the most infuriating, horrible, agonizing part of the entire game. So once you do manage to get the other weak point taken out, now you're going to have to go up the middle, and you're going to have to drop down onto a route and make your way into the center and actually attack the Witch of Izalith, who is in the center of the room. And this is really hard to do because, as I've said before, the platforming in this game is dog shit. So after minutes of fighting this boss turned to hours, which turned to days, which turned to weeks, which turned to months, which turned to years of your life running back over and over to this boss. What are you finally confronted with when you finally manage to succeed and get to the center of the Bed of Chaos? You are confronted with a bug. A bug. One who spams Firestorm at you, and while I have never died myself from Firestorm, I kind of feel like the game is just raising its middle finger at me for finally beating it. This ends the most awful, tedious, annoying, disgusting, aggravating, hideous, maddening part of the game. And now we can go on to enjoy the rest of Dark Souls. The result of rushed development and conflicting ideas failing to reach a common goal. The Bed of Chaos is the vomit-stained flag on the ship that is the notorious second half of Dark Souls. Here's hoping that Miyazaki and company never produce a boss like this again. So what have we learned from these bosses today? Well, I will say, for one, we have learned that gimmick bosses are not always fun and they are not always cute. A poorly thought out gimmick boss can cause irreparable damage and destroy lives. If you or someone you know has been negatively affected by a terrible gimmick boss, please join our Discord. Link is in the description. We have members hard at work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, to provide care and assistance for you. Together, we can make a difference.
Stop making me look like an asshole from Soft. You guys are capable of so much more than this. These bosses make me wanna uninstall. And Mika Lash drinks his own piss. Well, I think that was a ton of fun, guys, and I hope you enjoyed the video as much as I enjoyed making it.
What do you do when they're trying to give you a laser and a mug?
You know what? Forget this. I'm out of here.
Popping genital warts on a tree, it really ain't no fun. Stop making me look like an asshole from Saw. You guys are capable of so much more than this. These bosses make me wanna uninstall and make Lash drinks his own piss.
A hunter must hunt.